I think anything north of 4 anytime soon, I think that
Right.
would start to say, hey, my view is the Fed should have been easing all, even before all of this. I think they achieved their mandate. I think they got the economy at full employment, and I
Right.
think underlying inflation is at target. Exclude owner's equivalent rate, go to harmonized inflation, you
Right.
are at target, and they're taking a chance here with keeping rates up. So I think that it won't take a whole lot for them to start cutting rates.
Headline from Bloomberg. Thanks, Rich, for this. Traders pull forward first Fed rate cut to September from November. Zandi thinking they should have done that in September of 2023. Mark Zandi, you drank the Kool-Aid at Pennsylvania. We just came off Apple with 110 billion share buyback.
Yeah.
Can you aggregate the American labor economy? Or are we so polarized between the madness of tech success, American exceptionalism, and half of America, as you've studied for years at Moody's, flat on their back?
Yeah, it's a great point. These are great times for the folks in the top third of the income distribution. I mean, I don't know if this is hyperbole, but it feels like it's about as good a time as it's ever been. Maybe that is the roaring 20s. Middle third, it's okay. It's times have been better, but they've been worse. It's more typical. Folks in the bottom third of the distribution, obviously very tough time. That inflation that we suffered back in 21, 22, early 23 really did a lot of damage. They had to turn to credit cards and consumer finance loans, and now they're paying a lot of interest on that with the high rates that the Fed's engineering here. So those folks are really struggling. Now, the American economy can move forward without the bottom third, but it can't flourish. So yeah, that's a problem. That's a big deal, and one of our key vulnerabilities.
Anytime we see the unemployment rate rise, we should keep an eye on it. Like, that's not a good thing. Now, I look at, and this is for the unemployment rate and in general, I look at the 3-month averages. And so the low that we saw last year was 3.5% of that 3-month average. And today we're on average at 3.8%. So 0.3 percentage point rise. Sometimes that comes into a recession, but it is not a reliable indicator that we are in one. That reliable indicator would be a 0.5 percentage point. So it's, like I said, we should always pay attention to rise in the unemployment rate, and yet there are not alarm bells here.
Let me bring in my colleague, Paul Sweeney. He's just sold out of his 2-year yield with a gain, price up, yield down. Paul, to Dr. Zandi and Claudia Sahm.
Claudia, I'm wondering if you're in the camp that thinks, this Federal Reserve is already behind the times here, that they should have already been cutting here, that inflation has been whipped. Are you in that camp or no?
I saw the case, I think, by the end of last year that we should be cutting interest rates. They're a good bit in the restrictive territory, and if you want to be out of the way when you get to the dual mandate, I'd rather they do that in a gradual way as opposed to having to cut massively if a recession happens. And yet, this is a tough one. I get it. I thought Jay Powell really threaded the needle this week and pushed back on we're going to need to hike. Things are accelerating with inflation. And I think that narrative needed to get, set aside. So I like, in the range of things that I could imagine the Fed doing, they're doing a good job.